I wasn't married. I actually been married for another decade. But, it did shake me. It did cause me to question what I learned, and I had to I had to talk to them about it, but I also had to sit with myself to some things out on my own, because some things that your parents won't tell you about their marriage, and you gotta be okay with that. Some
Mhm.
things are just left to guessing. But what I also learned is that just because they didn't make you doesn't mean that I won't make you.
Mm.
And as long as I continue to put in the work on my end and I choose the right partner, and that's another thing, a lot of people aren't choosing the right partner. They're not vetting who they want to spend their lives with. And and my wife is the same way. Her parents actually divorced when she was 2. But what we both made a promise to each other is that we're going to break the curse or break the stigma of divorce in our families.
Mentorship has always been a draw, and I think that one of the places where we really miss the boat is with marriage, and especially in today's age. I think what happens is, if we're not mentoring, the lack of mentorship allows other stuff like porn and different things to become that mentor. And so what we have is we have porn mentoring, and especially in today's society where, growing up, if I was to get a hold of porn, it had to mean I had to get a magazine, I had to get a video, I had to sneak it, I had to go through all this stuff. Today, they just turn on the phone.
Yeah, I mean, he's right, because and I didn't understand this when I was younger, when I would hear other adults say this, but now as an adult, I get why they say this. Children now are so much more advanced than we were.
I think that feminism has completely destroyed the family unit in our nation as we know it today. It's become we're equal. I don't have a leader, I have a partner, and the partner piece I agree with, but it takes away the biblical component and the masculinity and the responsibility of men in marriage. In other words, without God, marriage fails. So, and that kind of brings me back to what you had said about being prepared to be a husband, because there's an equal scripture for our women that are listening about preparing yourself to be a wife. And so I just want to make sure that we're not isolating men in this. What does it look like, or what did Taylor do? And I know we're going to probably have her on at some point, so I don't want to take her mic drop moment here. But has she shared with you what she did to prepare to become not just a wife, but like a Christ-centered wife for the marriage that y'all have today?
Okay, so first thing is that as a husband, you are the spiritual leader of the home. So when you lose your cool, your wife is going to lose your cool. And if you have kids, they're going to notice. So the house go as you go, not just as a husband, but as you go as a husband and a wife. So it's important for me and my wife to discuss, and we had to learn this, not so much the hard way, but just trial and error. If we have a disagreement, the first thing that we did, and we discussed this, is we're not going to fight below the belt. We're not going to call each other names. We're not going to shout. We're not going to yell. We're not going to scream. And we call it spirited disagreements. So,
Welcome to the Common Ground Podcast, where stories connect, perspectives collide, and purpose is found in the middle.
Every week, we sit down with unique and inspiring guests that come from all walks of life. People who challenge the status quo, overcome the odds, and live with intentionality.
Whether you're driving to work, on your morning walk, or just looking for that spark to ignite your week, you're in the right place.
Welcome to the Common Ground Podcast with your hosts, John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Common Ground Podcast. That's right, it is your boy. It is Philly. He is in the house. He is ready. He is hyped. He is about to, I don't know, dig a hole. I don't know, because I don't know what I'm about to do, but I'm about to do something. So, but as always, I have with me the queen of the runway, the darling of the boardroom, the host of the host. That's right, you know her as Miss Sydney Nicole, in the house, in the building, also not digging a hole. How you doing, Sydney?
Doing well. How's it going, Philly, but not from Philly?
She is not going to let that
I'm
down.
never gonna let it die.
The funny thing is, if this podcast comes out before the previous podcast I recorded,
So
they
there's
won't know what you're talking about.
secret. So you have to watch the next episode or whenever we release that one to know what we're talking about.
That was a hint to a previous podcast or
Future.
upcoming podcast. So,
Upcoming.
but speaking of things, so I was talking with my friend this weekend, and he had his credit card stolen. So I was like, "Oh, did you report it?" He goes, "No." I was like, "Why?" He goes, "He's spending less than my wife did."
I love that.
You know what they say about a man who opens the car door for his wife, right?
No.
Either his car is new or the wife is.
Okay. Put your vote in the comments. I've got mine.
Yes, let us know which dad joke you preferred for the day. And as always, you can always submit a dad joke, and we will read it live on air and give you the credit for it. So, but that brings us to today. And today I am thrilled to welcome Marquis Williams to the show. Hello, Marquis.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Marquis is the co-host of the award-winning You Stuck With Me podcast, which he hosts alongside his wife, Taylor. Together, they have built a platform dedicated to reshaping how we view millennial relationships, sharing the raw, unfiltered truth of their own love story to help others navigate theirs. From surviving life, altering health challenges, to building a thriving community, Marquis is here to talk about what it really takes to stay stuck for the better. Now, the You Stuck With Me podcast, which he hosts with his wife, Taylor Williams, was recently honored by the Black Podcast Awards for Best Hosting Duo back in October, just this previous October. He is an author and a CSUN alumnus who has used his personal story of growing up in foster care to inspire others. They focus on millennial marriage, trauma healing, and advocating for Black mental awareness. And if I am correct, you were just picked up by iHeartRadio?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And again, welcome to our show, Marquis.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Super excited to talk to you about this. You kind of have a loaded story, and I know that your early childhood has shaped a lot of the relational stuff that you do today, and that's really going to be the meat of our episode. So, just for our viewers, tell us where you're calling in from today.
So I'm calling in from the Windy City of Chicago.
Okay, very nice. And how long have you been hosting You Stuck With Me?
So actually, in October will make 4 years.
That's awesome. Very cool. And that's always been with your wife, right?
Yes.
How long have y'all been married now?
In July will make 4 years.
Okay, so you like started it right when y'all got married, is that right?
Yeah. So my friends and family and her friends, our family, said, after everything you guys been through, you guys should write a book. And we kind of looked at each other like, we're not at that stage yet where we'll write a book, but we'll do a podcast, and thus You Stuck With Me podcast was born.
Okay, very cool, very cool. Can't wait to get into that. So let's give some backstory here. Tell us, who was Marquise before your wife, and what led you to Taylor?
Well, Marquise before Taylor, outgoing, never sat down, loves to read, basketball player, loves to hang out with friends, travel. I just really enjoy the little things and always up for making memories.
Very fun, very fun.
And as we were talking in our pre-show, you talked like that marriage was something that you always expected, always was looking forward. and you kind of, I believe, handled it in a different way than most kids growing up handle it.
Yeah, I think I was a lot different in that respect. I saw marriage between my parents and my grandparents growing up. My parents were married for 21 years. My grandparents, maternal grandparents, they're still married. I believe now make 50, 58 or 59 years. So I always grew up seeing marriage. And then, of course, when you're watching TV, you see couples and families. I was a big fan of the Fresh Prince, big fan of the Cosby Show, Family Matters. So I saw nothing but, marriage and kids. It's like, that's what I want one day. I always want to come home to a wife and, kids saying, "Hey, daddy." And I'm like, "Hey, asking them, how's your day?" Just, something simple. I know it is romanticized, but that's just how I always saw myself with the family, married, happy, raising kids.
You
Is
know,
it
you
Go ahead, John.
you brought something interesting in that comment. You brought TV shows also. So I want to really quick look at, because when I do ride sharing as a living, and one of the things that I've found is how impactful television has been on kids choosing careers.
Mhm.
Um, Whenever I hear of a doctor, you know, a girl or a boy going to be a doctor, I'm like, oh, what inspired you to be a doctor? And it's usually Grey's Anatomy, ER. That's where they, or I want to be a crime scene investigator. Why? Because of CSI. My lawyer has had impacts. Do you feel that not only did the family you come from, but did it sounds like TV also shaped your perspective on what you wanted out of life, as particularly in marriage and family.
It did. My parents, they really kept us. They really tightened the reins on what we were allowed to watch as children. So, it being family oriented, those are the first shows I remember watching growing up. But it was also other shows that I grew up watching. I like watching Full House. I like watching. Um, I did get into Step by Step, not Step by Step, but Who's the Boss? That was actually funny to me. So I saw a lot of family oriented TV shows. So that's really what influenced, along with my own family, my outlook about marriages and children and family dynamics.
It's funny, real quick, Sydney, I'll let you because I know you got some questions to ask too.
You're good.
But it's funny because even the ones who it wasn't like a marriage, you had like Full House, you had the uncles helping out, and Who's the Boss? You had Tony, who was this guy who came off the road who kind of created that family dynamic.
Hmm.
And it's funny because today, between music, between the shows and the dysfunctional family, and how families don't stick together, how families are always fighting on TV, that the marriage rate is plummeting. So I wonder what, and divorces and kids, between kids seeing divorce because they say that if you come from a parents that been divorced, you're more likely to be divorced. Um, that and our social media, our songs, are have really taken away from what the benefits of marriage and seeing marriage properly work, even when it's dysfunctional, like Full House and Who's a Boss. It still brought a positivity to family, where today that is missing. Do you think that that has an impact on this millennial and other generations of kids?
I think that does, but I think it's also everyone's own unique perspectives. I mean, I say that, and this is for everybody. At some point or another, you've been burned by a relationship, whether it's been familial or whether it's been romantic. And what shapes us, what we our circumstances or who we're around or what we're around, definitely shape us. My parents had us listening to. '70s and '80s music, but we also were familiar with, '90s R&B. You had your Boyz II Men, you had your Christopher Williams, you had your Albie Shores. We were familiar with them. My mom was really heavy on that letting us listen to rap unless it was Will Smith because he didn't curse in his raps. So we didn't really deal with rap. At least for me, I didn't deal with it until I got older and I started really listening to things on my own. So and even still, some of the things that are being rapped about now really haven't had so much of an effect on me because I already had a solid foundation for what I was looking for in a relationship.
Yeah, that's really constructive to have too. That's I mean, you've said so many things that are so unique to society today that I wanna get into. I mean, just that I have to mentally bookmark that I knew what I was looking for in a relationship because I think that so many people in today's society really struggle with their identity, and you can't know what you're looking for in a relationship if you don't know who you are and
Yep.
what will complement you and what will work with you if you don't have a solid foundation for what are my core values as a person and in my faith. How do I view the 5 topics that lead to divorce most commonly, like, those are the things that you have to have figured out in order to know what is going to build a constructive relationship for you. And then in addition to that, you said that the TV shows were romanticized, and it those 2 thoughts triggered something, a thought for me anyways, and that's this idea that is it romanticized or is it the idea that it only shows the good parts? Because I define those 2 things differently, right? Like, so you mentioned what was the show that you mentioned, Philly, where you said, like, even when it's dysfunctional? I don't watch TV, so
Uh,
you
Who's the Boss or Full House? Because they were
okay,
the
so,
two
like
that didn't
yeah,
have a
yeah, yeah.
marriage.
Okay, so I've seen some Full House, so I can get with that. I haven't, like, watched the series or anything like that, but it's the fact that we don't know how to deal with conflict anymore is what has our divorce rates in this nation so high, is that people negate responsibility for the role that they've contributed to conflict. They want to defer responsibility to somebody else and pass blame. And then in addition to that, you've got TV that kind of only shows the good parts. But what what did you know that you wanted in a relationship, and where did that definition come from?
So I knew what I wanted in a relationship probably at an early age, probably I'm gonna say 13, 14. Now I was I had a lot of friends who they were um they were having sex at a young age, 15, 14, 15, and I was not raised that way. So that outlook on women were completely different from mine, and they will always make fun of me like, "Oh, you're a sap, you're this or that." I'm like, no, I just look at the relationship between men and women differently. And growing up, I was really challenged in my thought process when I got to college, because when you get to college, you're discovering things what you're not privy to, what you didn't grow up with, and seeing things and hearing things, and it's like, okay, am I weird or am I just that, hopeful romantic? And I don't know a lot of other guys who, at a young age, were hopeful romantic. But one thing that I did realize is that, watching those shows, they did romanticize it to a degree, but they didn't show you the difficulties of trying to build that and trying to find the right person and realizing that you're going to come across people that you thought you were aligned with, and you come to realize that you're not. And the beautiful thing about it is it's kind of cliche, but you gotta run into the people that are what you not what you want to find out what you truly want.
So what were the things, just give me, like, the list in general. What were the things that you knew that you wanted out of a relationship?
I wanted uh I wanted somebody who would want me. I didn't want to go and try to chase someone only for them to say, "Oh no, I don't want you." That would have been a waste of my time. Um I wanted a relationship built on mutual respect. I wanted someone who could keep me laughing and I can keep them laughing. I wanted someone who believes in God, because I'm a man who believes in God. Um, Someone who I could grow old with, someone who has their head on straight, someone who has the same values as I do. and is not afraid to challenge me on certain things, even my beliefs.
Mm,
And even when it's said and done, even if we agree to disagree, we're still fine with that. We can move forward.
love that. So, what makes your relationship with Taylor different than the relationships that you had had in the past, if there were relationships in the past?
So what makes it different is that one realizing that I knew what I wanted, but I was going about it the wrong way. So I had to change and I had to grow. Another thing is that I allow her to change and I allow her to grow. We learn how to grow together as one. And we don't try to change each other. But what makes it even better is that we went to high school together. So we already knew kind of what we were getting into. We actually didn't start dating until we were adults. But just my wife's personality, the way she handles things, the way that she she knows how to talk to me. She knows how to talk to me and not at me. Uh,
Mm,
the mutual respect that we give each other, the love, the appreciation that we give each other, and I think our unique love story is not only the foundation of our relationship, but because of the things that we went through, it made us stronger, especially given the time that we started dating, which was during the COVID pandemic. And what I realized looking back at it is that while the COVID pandemic did two things in terms of relationships, it either brought people closer together or it broke them apart.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
and for us, it brought us closer together on top of the many issues that we had gone through. So, I'll scream this from the mountaintops. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't do it with anybody else but her.
mm.
And I just because my wife is my wife, and we have this bond that can't be broken. I found that she was my person all along. We just had to grow up since we met each other in high school.
Oh boy, I feel that deeply.
Do you did you court your wife? Do you know the term courting?
Yeah, so and it's funny that you asked that question because on a previous podcast we discussed the difference between dating and courting. I courted my wife. I made sure that my intentions were known, and we had that conversation early on. I remember when we first started dating, she asked me, "Where do I see us in 5 years?" And the first thing I said was, "Hopefully married, with kids, doing well in our careers." Fast forward to 5 years later, we were married. We hadn't had kids yet, but we do want them. But we're doing well in our career. So far, 2 for 3.
Yeah.
So real quickly, can you define courting for the audience who may not know what that is?
Sure. So courting is you find your person that you're really interested in, and that after a while you can see yourself moving forward with your future with. That you made your intentions known, that they've made their intentions known, so there is no gray area. You make sure that you stay on the same page. You're in a committed relationship, so you're not thinking about anybody else. It's just you two, and you're progressing in life to where you want to be married, where you want to have kids, where you want to grow old together, where you want to make memories with each other, where you want to have those inside jokes that everyone is looking at around you, just looking at you guys crazy because you're laughing and they don't know why. Uh, Courting, and I realized what courting was probably when I got it was it was after my last relationship, but before I started dating my wife, and I really started to, really be intentional with my time and really trying to break down what I really wanted, because the past relationships, what I learned from each of them was what I didn't want. So it helped me shape what I did want. And one of the things I did say before I started dating my wife was the next woman that I date, I want to be my wife. So in order for her to be my wife or search for my wife, I had to present myself as a husband. So
Mm, that
so in order to present myself as a husband, I had to change my thought patterns, change the way I did things in order to set myself up for that. Because you can say that you want to be a husband or you want to be a wife all you want to, but if you're not presenting those qualities, nobody's going to choose you as a husband or as a wife.
That's so good. And I mean, you didn't stumble into marriage either. You were aiming for marriage, and you had to prepare yourself to become a man worthy of that. So what does that look like being a man in today's society, where I feel like a lot of, not just men in general, this whole generation misses it. Like, women fail to prepare to become a wife, and men fail to become a husband. What did that look like for you?
Well, the first thing is that you got to have a relationship with God. You have to be centered. The second thing is you have to listen to him and let him lead you and let him guide you. And I, looking back, I believe when I said that the next woman I date, I want to be my wife. I believe that was a prayer, and God was listening. He said, "I have the perfect woman for you." And so just listening to what God is telling you as a person and standing centered and following him, even when you don't quite understand, because you're not going to see everything. He just says, just follow me, and you got to follow him whether you like what he's going to show you or not. And then when he presents your wife to you or he presents your husband to you, you're going to know, and he's going to whisper in your ear, that's the one. That's the one for
Mhm.
you.
And I love that because you didn't find a wife, you became a man that is worthy of one
Mhm.
and, like, prepared yourself for Taylor, which is incredible. I feel like I hear a lot of men say that they want a wife, and their lifestyle doesn't line up with that. It looks on the outside like they want options. What do you feel like the disconnect is societally?
I think society has told us that as men, we need to have multiple women for multiple needs. Now, you're not going to be able to get all your needs out of one person, and you got to be completely fine with that. But one thing I learned, and I recently heard this, and it kind of blew my mind. But I sat there and thought about, yeah, that's true. You, as a man, you don't deal with 1,000 women one way. You deal with one woman a thousand different ways.
I love that. So good.
Yeah.
So,
So you, one of the things that I've also learned is that, and spoke about this earlier. Uh, Growing, you got to grow because the person that you started dating one day is not going to be the same person 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. And you got to be okay with your partner growing, and they have to be okay with you growing and allowing you to grow.
so in that essence, like, how do you respond to the people who are like, "Man, I ain't having sex, with one woman for the rest of my life, I can't be," like, what's your response to somebody who has that kind of mentality?
They haven't finished growing yet. They haven't reached the mindset that they only want one person because after a while, chasing women or chasing men gets tiring. And at some point you're gonna want to settle down more than likely and have that one person. And as a man of God, I studied this in the Bible. He who finds a wife findeth a good thing and obtains favor with
Mhm.
the Lord. So me marrying my wife, I obtained favor with the Lord. And I want him to continue to breathe and bless our marriage in the best way possible. And I will tell, anyone who has that mindset, you don't have as much time as you think.
Mhm.
You really don't because one minute you're waking up, you're a vibrant 18-year-old, next thing you know, you're 30 with a career. So it's nothing wrong with having fun, but make sure that after a while you're gonna have to move in your life with intention and with purpose.
Excuse me. So I know you haven't mentioned this, but I'm going to take an assumption. Um, but because you talked about your parents and your grandparents, were they mentors to you? Or what kind of mentors do you have through this? Because I think that's one of the issues is the lack of mentorship. You can only get mentored. You can only have mentors that are properly doing something. So if you're coming from a divorced family, they can't mentor you in a successful marriage, right? But you have 2 generations of successful marriage before you that
Mhm.
you can go for. During the courting process, did you go to them for advice? Did you ask did you seek mentorship from them in finding Taylor? Or, do you have other mentors that you've looked up to and talked to?
Well, of course, my parents were my first mentors because they're your parents. You spend more time with them than anybody else when you're a child. And although my parents divorced when I was 21, it learning from them when I was in my 20s, at least in my young 20s, I was always thinking that I wouldn't go to my parents for marriage advice because they divorced. But then as I got older, I sat there and thought about it, like, you know what? I would go to my parents for marriage advice because they would tell me what not to do.
Hmm.
So, and I still kept watching my grandparents because I don't think it's ever easy to make it to 58, 59 years in marriage and just go my maternal grandparents have 3 children, including my mom. I don't think that was, easy at all because when you're married, you have to make the choice to stay with that person, to be with that person, and to be a service to that person because once you get married, it's no longer about you, it's about both of you guys. When 2 became one flesh, one body.
So the they divorced when you were 21, you said?
Yes.
Okay. So my question to you is, was there a point in your early childhood or growing up with them where you knew that their relationship wasn't good? And did that affect what you wanted out of a relationship? Or did they always do a good job at concealing that from you and your siblings, if you have any?
Yeah, I do have a sibling, a younger brother. I would say that I really noticed it probably around the time I was 18, 19. And when they did divorce, it wasn't really a surprise at the time, but it did shake me to the core. Because
Okay.
growing up, you've always known your parents to be both your parents to be in the house, and then to say, "Hey, we're getting a divorce," and it's like, wait a minute, why?
Hmm.
So like I said, it shook me to the core, but it didn't erase what I had already learned in those previous, 17, 18, 19 years. Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't all bad during that time.
Sure. No, yeah, that makes sense. And I think that they just have such thick skin. And I don't mean that in a way to justify what we put kids through or what they're exposed to, but kids are just so resilient in how they bounce back from those sort of things. Your parents or the people that raise you really do influence you so much that it's almost just having this rose tinted lens of being able to forgive them so quickly. And it's a blessing and a curse in some ways, especially when you're an adult and have to go, back through that. Did that affect what you wanted in relationships at all? Their divorce? Because you got married after 21, correct? You weren't married when they got divorced, in other words.
Well, I wasn't married. I actually didn't marry for another decade. But, but it did shake me. It did cause me to question what I learned, and I had to I had to talk to them about it, but I also had to sit with myself to figure some things out on my own because some things that your parents won't tell you about their marriage, and you gotta be okay with that. Some
Hmm.
things are just left to guessing. But what I also learned is that just because they didn't make it doesn't mean that I won't make it.
Mm,
And as long as I continue to put in the work on my end and I choose the right partner, and that's another thing. A lot of people aren't choosing the right partner. They're not vetting who they want to spend their lives with. And and my wife is the same way. Her parents actually divorced when she was 2. But what we both made a promise to each other is that we're going to break the curse or break the stigma of divorce in our families. And so
Mm.
we work intentionally to make sure that we are taking care of each other, that we are getting up in the morning, asking each other, "Hey, how can I make your day better? How can I be of service to you?" Now, sometimes we won't have anything, and sometimes we'll have like 1 or 2 mundane things, and we're okay with that because it works for us.
So I know you guys have a podcast, but do you do any form of mentorship for younger couples or people who are looking to get married? Do you guys actively mentor younger people?
Not in the traditional sense. I would say that the best way we mentor is through our podcast, talking about the issues that we go through or the things that we see, because sometimes our episodes are actually about a disagreement that we had amongst each other, and we're actually working it out in real time for people to listen to and people to see.
mhm.
You know, I asked that question and not to put any pressure on you guys or anything, but that's where I think, like, especially in faith, I think that is so needed. Like, I think mentorship is something as a kid that I've always wanted and, very rarely found. I had some mentors come into my life for seasons, but it's something that I've always as a kid was drawn to, and, like, I want people to mentor me. I have a father who is an awesome hero for me. He's an awesome role model, but somebody outside of who my family is, that mentorship has always been a draw, and I think that one of the places where we really, uh, miss the boat is with marriage, and especially in today's age, I think the lack what happens is if we're not mentoring, the lack of mentorship allows other stuff like porn and different things to become that mentor. And so what we have is we have porn mentoring, and especially in today's society where growing up, if I was to get a hold of porn, it had to mean I had to get a magazine, I had to get a video, I had to sneak it, I had to go through all this stuff. Today, they just turn on a phone.
Yeah. I mean, he's right because and I didn't understand this when I was younger, when I would hear other adults say this, but now as an adult, I get why they say this. Children now are so much more advanced than we were.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's not so much that you can hide now because, like you just said, it's available on the phone. Or even if it's not available on the phone, you have your their classmates because as a parent, I'm pretty sure, and my wife and I have talked about this. We can shield our children all as much as we want, but they're still going to be affected by their classmates and by their friends. So what we keep them from, they might naturally find out from them because uh, they have access to it.
And I don't know if it's that it's like become more accessible or that it's become more permissible. And maybe it's both. Um, Women statistically struggle with those things significantly less than men do. And that's by God's design for a variety of different reasons, which is in and of itself could be a whole nother episode. But I feel like men don't know how to be leaders. And I, as a woman and the only woman on this panel, attribute this to the feminist movement. I think that feminism has completely destroyed the family unit in our nation as we know it today. It's become the we're equal. I don't have a leader. I have a partner. And the partner piece I agree with, but it takes away the biblical component and the masculinity and the responsibility of men in marriage. In other words, without God, marriage fails. So, and that kind of brings me back to what you had said about being prepared to be a husband, because there's an equal scripture for our women that are listening about preparing yourself to be a wife. And so I just want to make sure that we're not isolating men in this. What does it look like, or what did Taylor do? And I know we're going to probably have her on at some point, so I don't want to like take her mic drop moment here. But has she shared with you what she did to prepare to become not just a wife, but like a Christ-centered wife for the marriage that y'all have today?
Well, her upbringing was amazing. She was raised by, even though her parents divorced, she was still raised by both of them. She had a lot of aunts, her grandmother, a lot of cousins. She has two siblings, but they're from a different her father's different marriage.
Mm.
So she had a lot of family who poured into her as well, especially her mother, because, and I love her mom because she was such a nice lady. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. Um, and she poured into her, showing her uh, how to how to be a lady who would attract a husband. Now, and it's a funny story because my mother-in-law, she will always tell my wife, no man wants a hard lady. No man wants a lady who likes Jordans and wears jerseys and t-shirts and all these things. And then I come along, I'm like surprised.
Be in so much trouble because I don't even know how to do the girly girl thing. Like not on my life. So I love that you love that for Taylor.
Yeah, I love that. I love that for her because she's comfortable in who she is. But make no mistake, my wife can dress to the T. She can man in a dress. So she's no stranger to it. But she's more comfortable in sweatpants and J's and wrapping her
I
hair.
just fine.
Yeah.
I love it.
So in faith, it's funny. I think for a lot of people, you start talking about God and they want to turn it off, and it's a shame because I think there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible that if even if you aren't a Christian, you should heed. And one of the biggest um biggest wisdoms I think in the Bible is particularly with marriage and the love chapter. And one of the biggest things that I love, and it took me once I realized it, and I didn't realize it till later in my marriage. But in the Bible, it goes, there's two sections. It talks about what a woman for the woman and then for the man. And it starts out, it says, women respect your husbands. And it says, men love your wives.
I love that.
And unless you're really in tune and picking it up, you miss that the you miss the point blank just philosophy of life
Mm.
that men want respect. And that's why in the Bible it's like women respect your husbands. It doesn't have to do with authority, it has to do with a man wanting to feel respected in his house, you know? If a man's going to go out and work all day and get disrespected by his boss and doing everything so that he can provide for his family, the last thing he wants to come home is to that same disrespect. He wants to come home to that he wants to come home to feeling like this is a place where I do get respected. Because out in the real world, we will do whatever we have to do for our family. And in hence, the woman is left at home in the biblical sense. Okay, I know. Don't chew off my head, women. Uh, the women left
You
at
gotta watch.
home.
You gotta watch what you say because somebody will take that clip real quick and twist it in a narrative.
Clip it,
Oh, yes, they will.
but
The
tag
woman,
me so that I can respond.
the woman who's left at home is desiring that love. She's dealing with the kids who she's training, who she's bringing up, and the one thing she wants to feel is loved. So it's husbands love your wives. Um, and and I love it because it doesn't stop there. As Christ has loved the church, and what
Hmm.
did Christ do for the church? He died. So for every woman out there who thinks that submission, is a bad word, is that our goal is to love our wives as Christ has loved the church, which means we need to be willing to die for them.
I gotta.
So,
Okay, I have to.
and
Yeah,
God never tells a woman to die for her man. He says,
yes.
respect.
I would though. Like I would though is the thing. You got to let me jump in here because I talked about this on the first podcast that I ever did. So like years ago, I talked about this book. It's called Love and Respect, or it's better known as The Crazy Cycle. The author is Emerson something. His last name also starts with an E, but it's this whole concept of women want love and men respond, or I'm sorry, women want love and they respond with respect when they're given it, right? So it's like without love, women respond; without respect, men respond without love. So therefore it's called the crazy cycle, is like we were created differently. But going back to what I just said a minute ago is that women have created this equality standard where if we're equal or if we are made equal, then we need the same things. And it has eliminated the masculinity and the leadership that is so needed in godly men in order for this design to be in alignment with how it was originally created. Like this whole system doesn't work without these two facts is what I'm getting at when I say that. And one of the things that I really struggle with is this idea of in conflict in marriage, we often see men that refuse to take accountability. And so, Marquise, my question to you, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to word it, so I might just dump it on you and then see how you respond. But when something's going wrong in a marriage, as a godly man, the Bible says is like, love her like Christ loved the church. Like you're willing to die for her at this point. It doesn't mean that she's not accountable to if she's done something wrong, but I see so many relationships that just deteriorate because it's like, well, I did this because you did this. And it becomes a vice versa thing where now we're just pointing fingers And there's no way of salvaging that from a biblical perspective. So, what does that look like being a follower of Christ or a godly husband? How do you reconcile that? How do you undo that cycle?
Well,
Respond after you.
What'd
well,
you say?
I said I want to respond after him. So
okay. So, first thing is that as a husband, you are the spiritual leader of the home. So, when you lose your cool, your wife is going to lose your cool. And if you have kids, they're going to notice. So, the house go as you go as a, not just as a husband, but as you go as a husband and a wife. So, it's important for me and my wife to discuss and we had to learn this not so much the hard way, but just trial and error. If we have a disagreement, the first thing that we did and we discussed this is we're not going to fight below the belt. We're not going to call each other names. We're not going to shout. We're not going to yell. We're not going to scream. And we call it I'm sorry, spirited disagreements. So we allow each other to get our point across, and we listen not to respond, but listen to understand. Because when you listen and understand where the person's coming from, it gives you a better idea, a better, a better idea from where your spouse is coming from. And with that being said, he's like, "Oh, okay, you know what? I didn't consider it that, or I didn't think of it that way." And it makes for more of a peaceful resolution. Now, does it work? It doesn't work all the time because sometimes we have to agree to disagree. We're just not going to see each other's way. But when you are able to see where each other's coming from, it's like, okay, I see why you did that. It makes sense. And then you can come with more amicable solutions. But you don't learn that if you, as a husband, uh, aren't following if you're not being the spiritual leader of the home because without the spirit it's going to be chaos when you
Hmm.
have disagreements and your house is going to be chaotic.
Yeah.
it
John,
ta-
you were going to respond?
it takes both people to have this attitude, and the attitude is it me or is it we? And when in my marriage, when I was struggle the most, it was about me not feeling it was fair or me feeling hurt. It wasn't about we. When I had the proper mindset that it was we, then I was able to put me to the side and deal with stuff. But when it becomes me, like I feel disrespected or I feel like you're not listening to me, I feel unheard, then it's not about we, it's about me. And you're making it about yourself. So it's it's not only understanding what am I feeling in this situation? Is this about my hurt feelings? Is it about my feelings? Or is this about our marriage? And how do I mean, because it's affecting our marriage. How do I change? How do I let you know how that's making me feel so that we can be better? Um, and it's not about me at that point getting necessarily everything I want. It's about making us good. It's about making us work. But as long as it's about no, it makes me feel better, what I want out of the situation, then you don't care how the other you're not caring how you're leaving your partner feel.
And you know what? You said something. Well, everything you said, it reminds me of another saying that I learned, and I told my wife about it, and we had a conversation about it. She said, "Yeah, this is something that we can get behind." So when you have a problem, it's not you versus her or her versus you. It's you two versus the problem because you always got to remember you two are teammates and trying to figure this issue out.
I love that viewpoint of being teammates because that's what it comes down to.
And then one thing that we learn is that when something's going wrong or something comes up, we learn not to turn our guns on each other because, and it goes back to what I just said about us being teammates. Because it takes two in a relationship, even though we're one. So with being one, we have to figure out how to move as one body and one sound mind. Now, like I said earlier, we may not agree, but as long as the problem gets solved, we can always go like, okay, we got the problem solved. Now let's go back and look and see why or how things could have been better, how things could have been done better. And I want to give kudos to my wife because, and this is one of the biggest strengths I love about my wife. She is heavy on the accountability because if she feels that she's wrong or she knows that she's wrong, she's like, you know what, I made a mistake. That's on me, my bad. And I'm the same way. And I love it because I've come across a lot of women in dating who accountability was a foreign language to them.
And I love again your teammate um metaphor because when you're a teammate and you're going against something, you know, you're not going to leave your teammate behind, right? So so if you have that mentality, then if you both are compromising, you want to make sure that she's gotten enough compromise out of it that she feels good because you don't want to leave her behind. You don't want to be like, we're compromising, but we're compromising for me because then I know I'm just leaving you behind. Um, but you in our pre meeting, you talked about investment
Mhm.
and you said something, and I don't want to say it. But what you said was so on point that I want to give you the chance to say it and then talk a little bit about it. Do you know what I'm referring to?
I believe so. So when you're investing in your relationship, you're investing in your wife, you're investing in your future, trying to make sure that your family is good. Because who you choose reflects you, and it's very important because you're going to reflect that person as well. And with that relationship, with you being a reflection of each other, it's important for you to always look your best, be your best, because one thing that you don't want to have is your significant other or your spouse. You thinking one way and they're moving differently, and you're looking silly, and vice versa.
Yeah, but investing, you were talking actually about putting like money into places, right?
Yeah. So you want to put money into things that are going to last and it's going to help you build your family. So I actually got into investing. I've been reading about it. So investing in your home and investing in IRAs and investing in 401ks and things of that nature. So you can leave a legacy for your family. Learning about how equity works, how stocks work, because although we're not going to be able to take any of this with us, it's important to leave for your family, leave generational wealth.
So how do you invest into a marriage?
So the
What
way
things
I'm,
are
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so what things do you consider an investment into your marriage?
Respect, love, communication. Communication is huge because in order for your marriage to work, you have to communicate with each other, especially when you start having children, because it's no longer about you two; it's about the child or the children if you have more than one. But communication, spending time together with each other, because and I've learned this from older couples who are empty nesters. Once the children leave, it's you two again, and you don't want to pour so much into your children that you forget who your husband and who your spouse is. One of the other things is quality time, date nights. My wife and I, we know how to make a date night out of anything from playing Uno to going to the grocery store. So
I love
it's it's true. So when you invest in your marriage, you're investing in each other, you're investing in your family, you're investing in future generations. They can go back and say, "Hey, they did this because of their union, and it was able to give us this."
Mm, that's such good stuff. The investment part is so real because I think that I don't know about everybody and I haven't done any research on statistics, but I was taught that love is something that is earned based on what you contribute, that it's an output scenario. So I always just really hyper focused on my career in order to make sure that I provided enough value. But then it almost like Uno reversed on me for the sake of your analogy of now I have it through this lens of if you're not contributing equal to or more than me, then it's not an equal situation. And so money became the higher priority for a long time in my life than the relationship or the value of the relationship. What are the habits of couples that they need to have in order to have a successful or healthy marriage?
God first, respect and love for each other, the same ideals, same beliefs. Um, they have to be emotionally mature. They have to be very emotionally mature. They know how to communicate. Um, they know how to talk to each other. And that, when I say talk to each other, but speak to each other in a respectful tone where
Mhm.
no one is taking offense to anything, but they're just trying to get their message across and they're okay with that. Um, they agree to disagree sometimes. Um, they're friends at the core of it, because there are going to be some days where you love you love your spouse, but you don't like them. But it's true. But because you're friends, that friendship is always going to remain essential, and it's going to remind you at times why you fell in love with this person, why you decide to spend the rest of your lives with them.
If you could go back to any age and give yourself one piece of advice about relationships, what age would you go back to, and what would you tell yourself?
Ooh, good question. Um, you know what? I would say about 26, 27, actually. And the reason why I say that is because at the time I knew what I wanted, I was just going about it the wrong way. And I would tell them like, "Hey, I see what you want, and you're right, but there's a way better way to get where you want to go." Because by
Mm,
that time, I reconciled with the fact that my parents were divorced, and but I still wanted that. I still wanted marriage. I still wanted a partner that I can grow old with.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's gonna bring us to our key takeaway segment of this episode. Um, it's been a great episode, and I've really enjoyed it. And
Key takeaways.
you call your podcast "You Stuck with Me," right?
Mhm.
And you want to be stuck with somebody who you really, really love, and who you're doing life together with, and to really to really be with the right person, that takes a lot of work ahead of time. That takes intention, that, as we've discussed, it takes desire, um, from you desiring that from a long time ago, you know? Um, it's just not like, "Oh, let's I found somebody who 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 I like, but you know what? I haven't desired," and sometimes we need to be honest. Do we really, really desire marriage? Because the Bible also says, that the best is to be single. God's like, hey, you're blessed if you can be single. For those who can't handle it, it's marriage. But that, not that marriage is bad, but like, listen, I've been a person who I'm married. I've been married. I definitely can't handle singlehood. I need that person, you know. But singleness is a gift. So make sure, do you properly desire to have that person in your life, because it does come with with things. It comes with priorities. It comes with, sacrifices. As I said, as a husband's to love your wife as Christ has loved the church, which means you need to sacrifice and be willing to sacrifice daily to your wife, to your family, to make it work. It's not easy. It's not a game. Um, so, but it's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing, and marriage is a blessing. So yeah, put the investment in,
Mhm.
put the time in,
Yes.
do the work, do the work, because the better prepared you are, the more work you put into yourself, the better you can be for that partner. And finally remember that you're a team. You're a team. Approach things as a team. As soon as you lose the team, there's no I in team, right? And so, check yourself at the door when you have those arguments.
It's
I agree.
there's like he agrees. He taught us. So it's tough because there's so many key takeaways. So trying to summarize it is
I know.
I mean, there's a lot. Like, this is such a problem in our society today. The fact is that healing isn't optional if you want a healthy relationship, it's required. Like,
Mm,
it's a requirement to be to become the person that you want to be able to attract. Your relationship will only grow to the level of your self-awareness. And if you're with somebody that you're unequally yoked with or that doesn't have the same values as you do, then you're capped out at the end of that. Like, you can't grow past that. But people don't. I love the work analogy because people do not invest into their relationships. They invest into what they perceive feeds them, right? So it's like, if my wife isn't respecting me, for example, that I'm going to invest more into my career because maybe I can earn that work. That's like a paid thing. If I can perform better, if I can do XYZ better, then that's something that I can earn versus when it's out of a relationship, that's not a paid position. So that investment piece is so crucial for people to understand that it is the same thing. People invest in what pays them, but they neglect what sustains them. And they just
mm,
view marriage or relationships as the thing that sustains them because God's been removed so largely from our culture. Like, we'll budget our money and we freestyle our relationships. And I just don't understand even from a financial sense, because this is something that, like, I was raised by a single dad for a long time. So that investment analogy is what really landed hard for me today. I think that people study for I mean, they go to college to learn how to build wealth, right? Like, we go to college to get this piece of paper that says, "Hey, I'm certified to do this job position so that I can earn XYZ amount of money." But we don't study at all how to build a marriage.
And
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just think that that's the missed opportunity. I think that the missed opportunity in society or culture today is the fact that when you remove God, everything fails. And that's the part that I'm not going to neglect in this conversation is that, like, you take God out of the equation and nothing else works. But if you leave God in the equation, then that requires you to acknowledge that there is a source that created the template for how this relationship's it works, right?
Hmm.
That's my key tip.
And I want to go back to what you said about when it's talking about money and working and following and not taking care of your relationship. And a lot of people have said this and they don't quite always get it. You go to work every day and you work to get paid, which is a piece of paper, money is a piece of paper. But they don't put that same work in marriage where they say marriage is just a piece of paper. You work for the money, but you don't work for your marriage.
Right, right.
Make it make sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Marquise, if our audience had been listening to this podcast and they lost internet for everything up until this moment, what would be the gold nugget of wisdom that you would want them to take away from this episode today? What do you want them to leave with?
Let God lead you and do not listen to any of the things that you see on social media or in the streets because they are misleading. You don't have as much time as you think you do, so go ahead, find your person, have a family, and let God take care of the rest.
and if you're a young couple out there, seek out a couple that's done it and done it well, and latch on to them because they will give you some wisdom that that is priceless. You talking about investment. Invest in mentors that invest in somebody who has a good marriage, who can give you that free advice, and avoid those pitfalls.
Agree because I have a lot of buddies from college who are married, and there are times where I go to them like, okay, I need help.
Yeah, yes. Amen. Having that mentor is huge.
Well, as always, we want to hear what your key takeaway is from it. So comment below. Uh, if you have any questions about marriage, any comments about this episode, please definitely comment below. And if we can ask you to subscribe, follow, and share this episode needs to be shared.
Yes, it does.
We need more positivity and speaking about real marital issues, and that's something that's really important to us at this podcast, is that we are pro marriage, that we are having people who are pro marriage on our podcast, because there's a lot of people who are divorce specialists, but these are the people who I'd rather you hear from. Don't look at the exit gates, look at keeping that marriage together. Maybe there needs to be that perspective change. It's not me, it's we. Invest and stuff. So yeah, definitely make sure you're following the You Stuck With Me podcast too. But comment below. We love to hear that. And that's going to take us to our final five.
The final five.
Who is your hero and why?
My hero is my father. And the reason why is because he was the one who really shaped me as a man and showed me the things that I should be doing, the things I shouldn't be doing. And he was very instrumental in me proposing to my wife. And if we have time, I can tell this quick story.
Go for it.
So at around the time I was thinking about proposing to my wife, we would go out on a morning walk for exercise. And so I told him what I was thinking. So he asked me these three questions. And he said, "Do you love her?" I said, "Yes, I love her and I'm in love with her." He said, "Has she been there?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "So what are you waiting for?"
Mm.
Those three questions. And that's why my dad is my hero.
I love that. That's so sweet.
I love that it had a reference to marriage.
Mhm. Okay, second question for you is going to be, what is one red flag that costs people years that they commonly maybe ignore?
Hmm. Not doing the work to find out who they're trying to spend their or who they're picking to spend their time with. And when I say that, I mean asking important questions, like about their values or about their family or what their beliefs are. They're just going along with the punches and just picking someone and then ending in divorce years later because they didn't do the initial work of doing the investment, doing the digging to find out what they need to find out to see if this person is truly aligned with them.
I love that. That's good.
What is either one book, one quote, one saying, one verse, one song that, and I'm going to change it slightly, that your marriage defines your marriage?
Oh boy, that's the first time he's ever changed one of the final five. You should feel special.
uh, well, I actually, I'm going to answer the first two, what book and one song. The book, and it's been multiple books, it's actually two books. So one book is by Devellin Kadeen Ellis, We Over Me, the counterintuitive book to getting what you want in your marriage. The second book is by Lateris R. Whitfield, and it's called Student of Love. The song that the song I choose would be by Isaac Carey, is called Her.
I haven't heard it, but
I don't know, but
I'm gonna play it after this, just for fun. Insert clip right here. Play the song. Next question for you is going to be, what is one green flag that people may overlook if they are maybe judging or criticizing a relationship too harshly?
Mm, the peace that they give each other. The peace that they give each other, because in a world that is so chaotic and society tells us one thing and then tells us another thing, and you can tell that those two people have decided to focus on each other, and they have found peace in their relationship.
Mm. And the final question is, if you could sit down and have a cup of coffee with somebody living or dead, who would it be and why?
Mm. Jesus,
Felt that answer coming on. Like I felt it in my bones. I don't know why. I knew he was going to say that.
because there is so much, even though there's so much written about him, but to actually sit down and look him face to face and just ask questions, I think that would be more impactful on me than meeting any athlete, any entertainer, because it's the person who was sent to save us.
Mhm.
And just to be able, I'm pretty sure there would be questions I would want to ask that he couldn't tell me, but just to get the just to get the chance to speak to him uh in this earthly body and see what he has to say would be it would be life defining.
It's awesome. Well, Marquise, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been an honor and a fantastic episode that I think a lot of people need to hear. Tell me, if people want to follow you and your wife, Taylor, and listen to your story, learn more about the wisdom that y'all have to share with people, where can they go? Where can they find you and Taylor?
So you can find me. I'm on social media. You can find me at my IG and formerly known as Twitter at mine M1NE_1. Once again, that's mine M1NE_1. You can find us on TikTok and Facebook. Just type in "You Stuck With Me" _podcast. You can check out our podcast episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. And if you want to email us a question, we'd love to answer them on our podcast. You can email us at youstuckwithme@gmail.com. That is USTCKWITME@gmail.com. Once again, youstuckwithme@gmail.com, USTCKWITME@gmail.com. You can find my beautiful wife on the same platforms on IG and formerly known as Twitter. You can find her at Queen Points or Points. That is PO1NTZ. That is PO1NTZ. That's on Instagram and on formerly known as Twitter. You can find her on TikTok, same name, Points PO1NTZ.
Love it. And we'll
Awesome.
be sure to link those in the comments below so that people can easily access those links.
Well, like Sydney said, this has been a fantastic episode, and I can't wait to have Taylor on and have her own episode with us. Um, and yeah, remember, when we take the time to hear someone's story, it gives us the opportunity to find common ground. Thank you again, Marquise, for being our guest today. For Sydney and myself, it has been our pleasure being your host, and you have been listening to the Common Ground podcast.
Thank you
God
for having
bless.
me.
God bless, and good night.
And that's it for today's episode of the Common Ground podcast. We hope you're leaving with a little more perspective, a little more purpose, and a whole lot more inspiration.
So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you to our special guest.
If today's conversation moved you, encouraged you, or challenged you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, rate it, leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more people who need to find their own common ground.
So for John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin,
we'll see you right here next week, same time, same place on the Common Ground podcast.
Please take a moment to listen to this disclosure from the Common Ground podcast. The Common Ground podcast is dedicated to exploring commonality among individuals with diverse perspectives. Our guests may present unique worldviews related to health, psychology, and overall well-being. Please note that the Common Ground podcast does not directly promote or endorse any specific ideas, concepts, or actions discussed during our episodes. Listeners are encouraged to approach the information shared with discernment and to consult with their mental and/or physical health providers before making any changes to their health or wellness practices. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not directly reflect the opinions of the Common Ground podcast. Your well-being is important, and we advocate for informed decision-making. Thanks for listening.